All right, Andy, thank you. 6:31 now on this Tuesday. I want to take you to Orlando, Florida. A live look outside the Pulse nightclub where federal investigators are expanding their investigation into Sunday's shooting and how much time the shooter had spent at the Pulse nightclub before the killing spree early Sunday morning.
Now, according to the FBI, the shooter may have even used a gay dating app to communicate with some of the club's patrons before he gunned down 49 people.
NBC's Craig Melvin is in the Orlando area this morning where the investigation continues today. Craig.
Andrew, Lori, good morning to you. All 49 of the victims have now been identified. The most recent identification coming overnight, President Obama announcing that he will be here on Thursday to pay his respects to the victims' families, to the survivors as well. This morning, we're getting some new information about what may have motivated the gunman to go inside the Pulse nightclub. Reports this morning that he had an active profile on the gay dating app Grindr. Also reports that he had been inside that nightclub on a number of occasions. Thousands gathered here in Orlando Monday night for the first official vigil as well. I'll have that and more coming up this morning on Today.
All right, Craig, thanks. We'll look forward to that in just a little bit. Also this, a dramatic scene in the House of Representatives as House Democrats protest lack of action on gun legislation.
Congressman Jim Hines, a Democrat from Connecticut, you see here walking off the floor during a moment of silence. You see it to the right of your screen. He says he did it because silence is complicit in allowing mass shootings to continue in this country. After the moment of silence, a congressman from South Carolina tried asking House Speaker Paul Ryan when various gun control bills would be brought to the floor, but with no success. Listen.
Mr. Speaker, I'm particularly interested about 3 pieces of legislation that have been filed in response.
The gentleman's not sitting in parliamentary.
A bit of a heated moment there as Speaker Ryan rules him out of order. Ryan declined to comment about the situation.
Meantime, as we've often seen happen after mass shootings in this country, gun stocks soared on Monday at the opening of the trading floors as the U.S. market reacted to what happened in Orlando. One firearms manufacturing company surged about 10%. Another jumped more than 6% at the opening bell on Wall Street. Investors have called it the Obama surge. When there's a mass shooting in the country, President Obama calls for stricter gun control, and gun sales and stocks soar.
6:34 now. We bring in Doug for the Doug Wright Wrap. And Doug, you know, we've been through this many times in talking about these issues, and it seems like everyone's so polarized that the conversation doesn't, you know, they talk at one another, not with one another.
Well, we mentioned this yesterday, how everybody on this highly charged political environment that we are in just immediately went to their corners. On one side, of course, it was on gun control and so on. On the other side, it was, well, what are we going to do about, and I'm speaking of the presidential candidates, Muslims coming into this country. Boy, just, phew, it leaves a huge void in the conversation. And sadly, we saw it in the House of Representatives yesterday. It was interesting, the response. Many people said, you know, we're tired of the ritual of showing solidarity and sorrow, but yet not doing anything. Now, what, you know, the Democrats that said that, what they're talking about is meaningful gun legislation. And you saw how testy that was between the Speaker of the House and Jim Clyburn. He said, and many people said, you know, we're getting tired of going through the ritual, the moment of silence. Some of the Democrats actually walked out during the moment of silence. And this wasn't widely reported at the time, but they did the same thing. Fewer numbers, but they did the same thing after San Bernardino, saying this is just a sham. We're here in the House of Representatives, the people's house, and we pay homage to the individuals. We profess sorrow. We have moments of silence, but we don't do anything. And so when it was proposed, Mr. Speaker, what are we going to do? When are we going to actually maybe talk about or pass some of these bills? And man, he was just cut off. Just slam dunk cut off.
Jay Johnson said that there are ways to improve gun safety in this country without infringing upon the Second Amendment. He just said that this morning. What would that look like?
Justice Scalia talked about that as well. This was Washington, D.C. v. Heller. You might recall that Justice Scalia wrote the majority opinion saying that, yes, Americans do have the right to keep and bear arms. It really, although militia is mentioned. That's not required. Yes, indeed, we do have that right. But he also said that reasonable restrictions, and I think that's the area where some conversation can occur. Again, everybody is so polarized. There are those absolutely nothing. They would actually like some of the laws even liberalized more. Others are saying no. And honestly, if people are very candid, you have everything from 0 handguns, no private ownership of guns. That's the very, very extreme. And then you have, there should be absolutely no restrictions on guns at all. Somewhere in the middle, there is room for a conversation, but boy, the tone right now, it's tough.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Really is.
Right. More 9 to noon today. Thanks, Doug.
Let's turn it to Sharon, the Breaking News Center, with an update happening right now.
Andrew, Lori, take a look at this video we just found. This is coming from Twitter and NBC reporter Eric Shackelford this morning. This is happening in East LA, and watch what keeps happening with this fire. I mean, this is a blinding explosion. These keep happening over and over. According to NBC4, magnesium is burning in the warehouse fire, possibly causing these explosions. So far, everyone is okay. That's the good news. But the fire has caused power outages to about 3,000 customers in that area. Just incredible video this morning, Lori.
Yikes, that explosion. Thanks, Sheriff, for the update. Meanwhile, in local headlines, prosecutors say they will not seek the death penalty for a Layton man accused of the abusive death of his girlfriend's 2-year-old son. Joshua Schonenberger is charged with aggravated murder in the toddler's 2015 death. The Davis County Attorney's Office let Friday's deadline expire without declaring an intent to seek the death penalty. Schonenberger is scheduled to return to court June 27th. And new today, a San Diego woman has pleaded guilty to defacing rocks at 7 national parks, including one right here in Utah. We're talking about Zion. These are the pictures 23-year-old Casey Knockett shared on her social media account. Well, it caused quite the backlash. Authorities say her vandalism caused serious cleanup problems because sandblasting, chemical stripping even, has been used to remove the paint, and it can cause even more damage to the national parks. She was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service.
Good news to report this morning. If you're among the tens of thousands of people looking forward to the Warriors over the Wasatch Air Show next weekend, the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds will return to their regular demonstration schedule this weekend ahead of Hill Air Force Base's air show. The Thunderbirds were temporarily down after an F-16 went down following the Air Force Academy graduation. No one was injured, thankfully, in that crash. The Warriors over the Wasatch Air Show coming up next weekend, June 25th and 26th. It is free to the public. We're glad to see that they'll be back performing for us.
Absolutely. And a slithering story we want to tell you about this morning. If you live in Holiday, watch out, because there's not 1, not 2, but 3 lost pet pythons that are 8 feet long, by the way. So the owner lost them. He says he wanted some back, and he's looking for them. He says the snakes are used to being around people, so they won't hurt you. And he says, you know, if you live in Holiday and don't want to look around your property, you can call him. He'll come over, take a look to make sure the pythons aren't, you know, anywhere near you.
If I live in Holiday right now, I tell you what I'm not doing. It's going in my backyard and looking for 8-foot-long python snakes. That is terrifying.
Not to mention a little gross.
Hope he finds them, and soon. Very
What if
soon.
they got into someone's, like, plumbing pipes?
Up to the toilet, like in Thailand?
Oh.
Could you imagine?
No.
Grant Wayman, morning to you.
Can we find out, like, what part of Holiday this guy lives